The judicial system has just dealt Diddy a rude awakening. To put it mildly, it wasn't the response he had hoped for. The judge didn't merely reject his time-served request after he attempted to use it as a negotiating chip. Their intentions were quite clear. He will not be allowed to leave easily. During this most recent courtroom incident, Diddy was taken aback. According to those in the know, he honestly believed that his incarceration thus far had sufficed. However, the judge, I am not convinced. Time is of the essence, and the sentence is far from finished. Now that we know what happened in court, let's dissect it and figure out what Diddy should do next. Since everything has changed, with a plan in hand, Diddy arrived at court. In the hopes that it may shorten his sentence, he should request credit for the time he has already served. The attorney for the defendant contended that the time he had previously served in prison for the purposes of the investigation and pretrial should be considered in sentence. However, the judge had none of it. The court explicitly stated that time served would not be considered, according to various legal authorities with knowledge of the matter. Why? Reason being, prison time isn't the only issue here. It all comes down to how serious the charges are. Claims of financial influence, coercion, and trafficking are at the heart of this matter, not something that warrants a scolding. The prosecution presented an entirely different narrative in response to Diddy's defense team's efforts to portray him as cooperative. They tried to construct a picture that showed this wasn't an isolated incident. This was systemic by pointing to the abundance of evidence, the testimonies, and the recurring patterns of behavior. What shocked everyone, though, was how self-assured Diddy entered the courtroom with an air of mystery. According to those in the know, he had faith that the court would be forgiving. However, according to reports, Diddy appeared completely unfazed by the court's resounding rejection, as if the thought had never occurred to him. Combs' legal team contended in the filing that their client's interactions were consensual rather than prostitution. They contend that he lacked any financial incentive. From a legal and emotional standpoint, this is a devastating setback for him. In spite of everything, Diddy has been making an effort to maintain some control over his public image. However, with this denial, the weaknesses are becoming apparent. The legal team for Diddy swiftly into damage control mode when the judge denied his request for time served. Rumor has it that they are now frantically trying to come up with a fresh defense plan in time for the final sentencing because they were unprepared for such a firm position. The court is clearly giving the accusations its full attention, as this denial further indicates. According to attorneys, this shows that the judge isn't impressed by the defendant's famous status or his showy defense strategies. Is that the point? No one gives you special treatment because you're Diddy. From what we hear, Diddy's legal team is currently considering their next move behind the scenes. Requests for review? Most likely so. Possible postponement of sentencing. However, the truth is that the tone has already changed due to the denial. Our problem has escalated beyond a simple public relations issue. There is little time for safe landings in this legal maelstrom. We argued that this is an extraordinary reason since it is required under the relevant statutes and case law. Furthermore, it is for this reason that Mr. Combs should be considered for bail. The fact that his camp has remained silent is even more indicative. No fresh claims, no interpretation of the results. They appear to be reorganizing in real time, likely realizing that their regular strategy won't be effective in this situation. Since time is no longer an issue, many are asking not how fast he can get out, but rather how long he will really spend behind bars, just because they're attempting to determine the exact moment. Plus, he'll be at approximately 1 year of age when October 3rd rolls around. Thus, he was apprehended sometime in September. I think it happened in September. That matters because the prosecution is arguing that he ought to receive a sentence of 45 years, or between 51 and 63 months. At 21 and 27 months, the fence is bickering. This adds up to little more than 2 years, but several sources I've read indicate that it will be shorter after credit for service spent. He may be able to anticipate their forecasts in less than 2 years. Perhaps returning home. It should be noted that there is a lengthy list of individuals associated with this case. The judge's ruling may have had the reverse effect of what Diddy hoped. A reduced sentence would calm things down. According to those with knowledge of the situation, further victims, testimonies, and federal involvement could ensue if the investigation is prolonged any further. Another big change may be on the way as Diddy's camp deals with the judge's ruling. This is coming from the very person who started it all. My name is Cassie. After seeing the judge reject Diddy's request for time served, Cassie may be considering taking another step forward, either publicly or legally, according to sources close to the case. Truthfully, it makes perfect sense, considering that most of her disclosure has resided in quiet documents, settlements, and lawsuits until this point. However, a larger and more public reckoning may be possible if Diddy is found guilty and sentenced to actual time. The United States Attorney's Office actually cannot make a deal. Plus, Diddy is highly unlikely to take it. Doing so would necessitate spending several years behind bars. The narcotics offenses and the sex trafficking each have mandatory minimum penalties of 10 years. Others have been able to follow Cassie's lead and come forward because of her. According to sources close to Diddy, she is now feeling much more supported, seen, and confident in her position since the court is obviously taking the accusations seriously and not showing any favoritism. It should be mentioned that since the first legal dust settled, Cassie's team has maintained a low profile. But things are changing now. Cassie may feel safe enough to open up if Diddy is facing substantial prison time, public appearances, interviews, and potentially testimony in the event that additional allegations are brought to light. Aside from Cassie, it's everyone. Individuals with ties to her case, other purported victims, and even ex-employees are making a comeback on the internet. At the moment, Diddy is moonwalking his way out of jail while trying to pull a Michael Jackson impression. Given this, how much is known about Diddy? Not a racketeer. He's evading capture under the RICO Act. Oh, he's not a mobster. No one is plotting with him. His guilt in sex trafficking is not proven. Being an insane nutjob is the only real crime he has committed. Some are recycling accusations from earlier. It appears that more is on the way, according to some. The judge's refusal to give Diddy a pass essentially stoked the fires. And that months-long period of relative quiet, it is beginning to crack. Things have taken a turn for the worst after the judge formally rejected Diddy's motion for time served. The shutdown of this isn't merely a delay tactic. It's clear they're not joking around on the court. It appears that things aren't going Diddy's way, even though he may have entered in thinking his influence could mitigate the impact. Not quite yet, anyhow. Any action he takes going forward will be closely examined by the legal community, who are now keeping a closer eye on the matter. Others involved with the case, particularly those who have remained silent, may feel pressured by this denial as well. Nothing has been heard from the industry lately. That stillness, though? I'm beginning to feel afraid. This concludes today's video. In your opinion, what does this portend for Diddy's future? Has the court begun to challenge the celebrity power shield at last? Please subscribe and share your opinions below. Rest assured, there are other developments on the way that you definitely won't want to miss.